Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Beyond Dimensional. We are your fabulous witchy hosts. I'm Liz.
I'm Lori.
And we are here today with a very special friend. His name is Jim or James or Jimmy Jams or Jammy Jims, but we're going to call him Jim Esker. And please correct me if I just pronounced your last name wrong. We did not check on that before we walked in here. But you can also find him known as Psychic Medium Jim. For his fancy Instagram followers. He is a friend of ours outside of this podcast, and we had to have him on because he is an expert in all things psychic, in all things medium, fantastic, wonderful expert in the spiritual realm, in understanding astrology. I'm going to pass the mic over to Lori because they actually have a very fun relationship that started many moons ago. So Lori, please take the lead.
I felt like that sounded so inappropriate. What about our fun relationship? Geez, wow, okay.
That's how we rock and roll.
So I think I'm one of the only people that calls you Jimmy Jam still. I think you used to have a friend that called you that, right?
Yeah.
I've always called you that, though. I don't know where I got it from. Maybe your friend.
It sounds like the only way I'd ever want to call anyone.
Isn't it cute? Okay, anyway, I digress, as we know. So James and I met at a past employer. And I don't know, I can't remember, this was a few years ago, James, if we connected right away, but I know I was always in your office talking to you, and we were talking about all the spiritual stuff. If you listen to episode 2 with my mom, she talks about James, or you'll hear her reference James. This is the famous James that she is talking about. Hi, Mom. Karen. I mentioned in the episode with Melissa, They See Dead People episode, that, there's 2 people that really helped me kind of discover where I am and what gifts I might have. One of them is Melissa, but the first one really was James. And so I'm super, super grateful to have him in my life and have been able to really experience and learn from him over the last couple of years. And definitely he's on the hook to keep teaching me more and more stuff. One of the many things we spend time on is astrology. And I know very little about astrology. I've got the 3 figured out. You've got your sun sign, your rising sign, your moon sign. I got that part. I know there's a lot that goes into it. I'd love to hear from you kind of where you started, how you got into astrology. And then we'll talk about mediumship as well, but I'd love to start just with the astrology part and tell us all about it.
Well, astrology, I got into to kind of like learn a little bit more about myself.
Yeah.
And what I was about. I actually took a class in esoteric astrology at the Philosophical Research Society back in probably the 90s. I'm dating myself here. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And it was interesting because at that time I met an astrologer and I had my first reading. And so she looked at my chart and she was kind of, when you look at a natal chart of someone, it kind of gives you the blueprint of the soul. It gives you the information of what they came into this life with and the energy they're going to work with, the lessons they're going to learn. And it was funny because in that reading, he told me that I was a medium. She broke down my chart and she's telling me this planet's here, that planet's there, and my sun, my rising, and my moon. So my sun is Capricorn, my rising is Leo, and my moon is in Pisces. And in that, he told me I was a medium, and I had no idea what she was talking about. I knew I had good intuition. I knew that I would get hunches and things would happen, but I didn't know what a medium was. And I'm like, well, what's a medium? She said,
she's like, it's not a small and it's not a large, it's a medium.
It's a medium, yeah. What she used the analogy was, so, well, imagine an onion, and an onion has layers to it and a core. And those layers of the onion are similar to what people have that separate them from this side from the other side. And you, looking at your chart, you have less onion layers than most. So you would have to be really careful because you're going to pick up energy. You're going to pick up images from the other side. And if you're not positive, if you're not working towards your spirituality, you could get mischievous spirits. You could get bad spirits and all kinds of strange and wonderful things that could happen. And I looked at her and I'm like, yeah, that's not going to happen. No,
sure.
There's no way that I'm a medium. And she also told me that I would be involved in the occult, the metaphysical, and astrology. and I didn't know what the occult was. I had to ask for an explanation of that, and everything she told me went totally against my Catholic upbringing. And
Yeah,
so I
you're
was
gonna
like,
have to explain occult to me too, because I definitely a lot of people have used that word, and I'm like, sure, yeah, cult, yeah.
it's another way of saying metaphysical. It's another way of saying the spiritual sciences. I mean, it's the old terminology. But I was like, no, that's devil stuff. I'm not going to be involved in any of that. And she said, you're going to speak in front of groups of people and you're going to do this and that. And I'm like, nah, yeah, nah. So at that time, I was still drinking. I was a drinker back then. And so what happened was, and I think looking in retrospect, my drinking was to debt my intuition because I was picking up stuff. When you're someone who's picking up stuff or you're seeing spirits in the corner and you're a kid and you're telling your family and they're like, yeah, it's your imagination. Yeah, you're crazy. You start to think you might be a little bit crazy. So so she told me that. And then eventually what happened was I started to learn the chart. I started to read my chart and understand the energy that I was born with through my chart. And when you combine that energy that you're born here with in your natal chart with the transiting planets that are occurring at that moment, then you start to get a picture of what's actually happening in your life at that time. So I did that. I started studying that, got very interested in it. Then I went and started to study the tarot and numerology. And then I set out to work on my psyche ability because I started to understand it more. And in the interim, I decided to quit drinking, which was very interesting because when I quit drinking is when I met people who were more open to the metaphysical, to spirituality, to Buddhism, to different religions, to ghosts, to goblins, to witches, to everything, right?
Ooh,
So it opened,
goblins.
yeah. So it opened that book for me. But I also ended up in my process of stopping drinking was I was speaking in front of large crowds. I was speaking at conventions. He was right all along, and I didn't know, and I certainly wasn't even looking in that direction because of my upbringing. Right, that was the evil stuff. And then I slowly progressed until I started to understand myself more, and then started to understand my level of sensitivity more. Then I started working with it more, and it started to take a lot of the fear away. And then I did the thing that a lot of young mediums do, and that's when you kind of call it ambushing somebody. Like you're talking to somebody like, "Hey, did your mom die? Did your this die?" And you start giving them information. Later on, working with and learning from other mediums, it's like, well, we don't do that. We don't do that. What is it? Teresa Capola
Yeah,
stop somebody in the supermarket and
like
say, "Hey,
like
this is what's going."
like I did at John Edwards when we went to see him, and I'm like, hey, and I'm telling people, and we talk later, and he's like, that's just you can't be doing that. That's not how it works. I'm like, I didn't know. I'm just so excited to tell this person something. No, that's not how it works.
And it was interesting because when we went to that event, she asked me, she said, "Aren't you picking stuff up?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but I don't say nothing." I'm like, that person's here for a brother, that person's here for this, that person's here for that. And then, I will wait to see what the medium gets, the one who's giving the event. And if they get the same thing I got or we're the same person, then it validates it for me. But in the beginning, I was doing the same thing Laurie was doing. I was a locksmith. And one of the tools that I used in the beginning to enhance my intuition was psychometry. And psychometry is when you hold an object of somebody's and then you get to feel their energy from that object, and then you can psychically determine what's going on with them. And depending on which of your abilities are the strongest, if it's sight, smell, hearing, feeling, you'll start to pick up those things. You'll either see something, hear something, see images, all that kind of stuff. And so I would do that. And I would rekey the person's house. I'd have their keys, and then my van, I would tune into the keys and get whatever information I could. And then when I would finish the job and give them their keys back and bill them, I would try to have a conversation to see what I could validate. Like, "Oh, this is a nice house. It looks like it belongs to a doctor." And they're like, "Oh, I am a doctor." But like a
Good.
specialist, this is more than just a regular doctor. "Well, actually, I am a specialist." Or,
You're
or
like,
one time it was like, "This feels like a judge's house." "Well, I am a judge." That kind of
what
thing.
is a judge's house? It's so funny that they like their ego was probably so like pet, and
Yeah.
they're like, oh, I
Well,
feel so good. Like this
Hard
is
to
a
guess.
judge's
Yeah.
house. Yeah,
but as you develop your intuition, you feel it.
of
So what I
course.
tell people is if you walk into the supermarket, there's a feeling that you get when you're in the supermarket. When you walk into a courtroom, there's a feeling you get when you're in a courtroom. When you walk into a Catholic church, there's a feeling you get when you walk into that Catholic church.
Yeah, that's what I'm scared.
So, yeah, it's heavy.
I would just
To me, it
burst
was
right
always
into
heavy.
flames.
Yeah, there you go. You throw the holy water on yourself.
Yeah, make it worse. It's like a grease fire, just like the whole thing.
You'll be like the Wizard of Oz. Melty, milk.
100%.
When Lori and I were at the John Edward event, she was getting a lot of information. I'm like,
Hold on.
you don't want to do that.
James is like, I don't know her. I don't know her. Oh my God, I'm so embarrassed.
But it was a fun night. It was a fun time.
Yeah. That was our second one, right? We went twice.
Yeah, we went twice. So then with that, I started working more on my astrology because I wanted to see where in my astrology it would show that I was a medium. How does she detect that?
Yeah.
What aspects were there in there that said, okay, this person is a medium or this person is super sensitive? And then you start to learn about the energy of the planet. So astrology works based on the energy of the planet. Each planet has an energy attached to it, and where that planet is within your natal chart is how you're going to express that energy. It's like they say, I think the house is the stage, the planet is the actor, and the sign is the script. And
I
so when
love
you
that.
look at it that way, it works something like that. So whatever house, I think the house is the stage, the sign is the character, and the planet is the script. But it breaks it down to you because it's a soup, right? So the first house is the self. It's how you present yourself to people. So if you have Mars there, you're going to come across the people either passionate, progressive, high energy, impulsive, because that's how
Intense.
the planet Mars is, right? And it's in the house where you express yourself. If you have Jupiter in the first house, Jupiter's a benevolent planet. It brings you extra luck, but it can make you fat because it expands everything.
Or the spiritual thing. Does it to me, I'm going to be psychic.
Fascinating. That's what's fascinating to me is that you could look,
Yeah.
she could look at your chart and be like, you're a medium. Like, not just like, oh, you have sensitivities or like.
Yeah. Well, see, for me,
Yeah, I guess.
my Pisces is in the 8th house, and the 8th house is ruled by Scorpio. It's the house of death and rebirth. It rules the occult, the metaphysical, or other people's money, taxes, inheritance, and the subconscious. So it rules all that stuff, right? The unseen stuff. And the moon is emotions. It's how you tie into it. It's the path. So with the moon there in Pisces, Pisces is the most spiritual sign of the zodiac. It absorbs the most spirituality. It's a mutable sign, so it can adapt and move around. It picks up the energy around it very quickly, very easily. If you have that combination, you're intuitive, but you're also careful with who you hang out with. Things around certain people, and you need time alone to recharge. You can't be around. I can't do large conventions and parties and stuff like that. It's just too much energy. It gets very uncomfortable.
I'm curious because you say that you have a background in, Catholic church. Is that kind of your upbringing? But you got to a point where you wanted to learn more about yourself. Why did you choose astrology as the way to do that versus anywhere else? How did that idea come up? Because I feel like that would not really be in your realm. So what was the impetus to be like, I think astrology is the way I want to go to learn about me?
That's a good question. Let's think about that for a second. Because I started reading about the horoscope, or you're a Capricorn and you're supposed to be this way, but it didn't quite blend in all the way. And then when I came across astrology, and they told me the same thing, right? Your 3 strongest are your sun, your moon, and your rising. And then I started studying, I'm like, okay, this explains this part of me. This explains that part of me. I actually have a Leo rising, but in that Leo rising, I have the planet Uranus, and Uranus rules astrology. So that's in my house of self. So it's gonna be an attraction to that at some point, and it's part of the metaphysical occult, which is gonna be my 8th house stuff, my moon. So there's comfort in that. The other thing is, even as a person who's a psychic medium, I can't read myself. If I sit and meditate, I sometimes get information. Like sometimes when things are bad, I used to meditate and say, okay, what's my lesson here? And I would go into a meditation for half an hour, whatever it took. And when I came out of it, sometimes I would know the answer to that question, what the lesson was. But sometimes, and I could articulate it, but sometimes I would know it, but I couldn't articulate it. I would just know that I knew it. You know what I mean? It's a knowingness, but without being able to explain it. Or if I sit consciously and say, okay, what's coming up for me next week? What's going on with this? I can't get it because you don't know if it's wishful thinking or you're getting information from your spirit guide. Is this coming from them or is this what I want to happen? The same thing with doing family and close relatives. You can't, is this what I want for them or
Right.
is this what I'm actually getting?
Yeah.
In
But then how does,
astrology,
I was just going to ask, how does manifestation work for you then? Is that like, can you, how do you focus and ensure that, I guess, well, you're thinking about like, well, what do I want? And what am I like trying to imagine for myself? Or am I getting a message from my spirit guides? Like, how are you able to make sure that you're manifesting things that you want versus, you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
yeah, I think with the manifestation aspect of it, so the manifestation comes from the thought comes from the etheric, right? So those things you're trying to manifest are in the unseen world right now. They're unseen etheric realm. And what you're trying to do is solidify them. You're trying to lower the vibration of that thought to make it a physical reality in our physical reality world. So I think if you focus on that and then follow your guidance, your inner guidance towards achieving that, then you can create that. I think that's one of the reasons people do vision boards. Right now, it went from an unseen thought to a physical picture. Then from a physical picture, try to create it to a physical reality. I do think you have that ability to do that. But I also, in that same thought process, consider karma.
Right.
I may want that, and I may have the ability to manifest that, but is it in my karmic path to have that? Right? Because years ago, I was a hypnotherapist, and I was reading books on hypnotherapy and the mind and how to manifest, how to reduce pain, how to create. And one of the things that crossed my mind one day was, you can put someone into a trance and you can eliminate the pain. They can be in a lot of pain, the pain can go away. I've seen videos where someone's had surgery done under hypnosis without any anesthesia.
Wow. Yeah.
So if you have that kind of control, my thought process was, right? That means your subconscious mind, which controls your whole body, can turn things on and turn things off. So if you're terminally ill, how would you guide somebody in a hypnotic state to a place within themselves where they'll balance the chemicals within their body to eliminate that ailment, be it a cancer cell, be it diabetes, be it whatever it is? How do you get there to do that? And I spent a lot of time on that. I read a book by Candace Pert, which did her PhD on the neuroreceptors. And in her PhD thesis, she wrote about your body parts have feelings. Your hands can be depressed, your feet can be depressed, your shoulder can be depressed. They have emotional receptors throughout your body that can be depressed and be happy. So how do I guide somebody to connect with that to help them heal? And then I kind of batted my head. I got obsessed with trying to do that, right? And I started reading about people who had terminal cancer. They're in the hospital. They see an angel. They have a high fever. Doctors check them a couple of days later. The cancer is all gone. How'd the cancer go away? The doctors can't explain it. There's no medical explanation. Tests show everything is done. The person is healthy and out in a week, and it never comes back. How does that happen? So I started working on it, and I thought, well, if you were able to do that, then what's the effect on the karma? What if it's that person's life lesson to pass that way, and then here your happy ass comes along and you change it? Then when that person crosses over and maybe they didn't learn the lessons they needed to learn to not come back, now they're coming back because of you. Or you're interfering with their karma, now you're picking up karma.
Yeah.
That's why when
That's deep. Like, I've never thought of it that way, but as you're saying it, that makes a lot of sense.
And would it work each time? Because that makes sense too, where it's like, well, now that there's a reason why we don't hear about a lot of these people. And it's like the miracle single moment, right? That maybe they were meant to be in that body with that life, with that release of cancer for that reason. And everybody else has their own journey that they have to bear. I don't know. Like, would it work with everyone? Like, because I'm sure you took yourself out of it because you're like, oh, I don't want to mess with the karma shit. But maybe you interfering was what was meant to happen, and whatever comes
Right.
to it.
You know.
right? There's
But then you got to think, right? It's not that person's physical body that's making a decision. It's that person's soul, because your
yeah,
soul knows when you're going to check out. When you transition, theory is your soul knows when you're going to leave
yeah,
and the conditions you leave. If you're going to be alone when you leave, or if you want to have family around you when you leave. On a soul level, you set that up. So if I'm leading you into a hypnotic state, and here I am trying to push buttons to get your physical body, back in alignment, and your soul's inside that physical body saying, "Now I don't think so. This is not going to happen." Then, to your point, you might not be able to do it. And even if you tried to mess with it, that soul in that body could have the same amount of energy you do. Could say, "Nah, you need to take a hike."
exactly. That's what I'm thinking too. Like there's only like everyone's decisions are only theirs to a certain point, I suppose.
Yeah, your decisions you're making in the physical are combined with your ego.
Well,
Right? Your soul knows what you're here to learn. Your soul is the imprint of your astrological chart. That's one. So this is the energy that we're coming into this life with under these circumstances, because we want to learn these lessons. And then here, those of us who want to be helpful, we're trying to monkey with that course of that soul, and they're like, no. Maybe my soul or my spirit guides are on the one level talking to their spirit guides and their soul, and they're getting together and say, look at this guy. Look at the ego on this guy. What he's trying to do. Somebody told him to stop.
but can't you tell? Like, I felt like in the couple instances where and again, this is nothing like healing cancer or saving someone's life, so maybe it doesn't apply. But the instances where I have provided space for someone to heal themselves, right, and gone into, I'm going to help this person heal from something. I'm going to channel it so they can do this for themselves. It's worked, right? But in certain situations where I've been asked to do that or tried to do it, it would not work. So it's like, nah, no, veto. You don't get to do anything for that person, but this person you get to. So isn't there some kind of self-regulating that happens? I don't know if that's the right word, but soul regulation or spirit guide regulation that kind of prevents us or can prevent us from being able to do those things?
Well, yeah, that's kind of like what we're saying, right? So if their soul doesn't want it, then it's not going to allow you to change it. That's why whenever you do healings, I used to do hands-on healings, because I'm also a Reiki practitioner. And the thing you ask is in their highest and best good.
Yeah,
What's
right.
in their highest and best good, not what's in mine, not what I want for them. Universally, for their soul, what's in that highest and best good. And I think when you get to that point where you say that out loud and you're doing the work, if that soul wants to heal, then it'll accept the energy and help the body heal. Then it's a twofold thing. It's you on the outside sending in the energy, and the soul on the inside absorbing in the energy and utilizing to help heal the body.
You mentioned just before about the soul and how your astrological chart is the imprint of the soul from the moment it entered when you were born, right? It's the energetic stamp. Um, can you explain a little bit your understanding of where astrology comes from, like our learnings of what astrology is and how that originated to collect to collectively understand that it's a soul, what that really looks like, and why it imprints that way?
Well, if memory serves me, right? Astrology has been around for a couple of thousand years. And it originally started through observation of the seasons and the stars and things that were occurring. So they started tracking things that were happening when these people were born at this time, when these things were happening. They started to apply that. As we became more advanced, they discovered more planets, and they discovered more energy attributed to those planets, and that was added to astrology. So I think it evolved like we evolved as a civilization. We may find in another 1,000 years, there might be another couple of planets and that they add to astrology. There's one that now some astrologers want to add a 13th sign. I think it's Ophius or something.
Yep.
That's going to be in between the two. And the other thing is Western astrology, tropical astrology, which I study, is different than sidereal astrology.
Okay.
So in tropical, we put Aries on the ascendant and we go that way at 0 degrees. But if you go truly scientifically, Aries is not at that point anymore because of the axis of the Earth has
Yeah.
changed by 21 degrees. But they still hold true to that energy in Western astrology of what those planets mean and how the houses and constellations fit.
And there's a few different astrology types that I've heard about that I haven't
Practices.
even really looked into. But like I talked to someone who reads galactic astrology, and in galactic astrology, I'm a Virgo, which would not apply at all to our definition of Virgo. That'd actually be comical because I have 0 Virgo traits, as opposed to being a Libra. So from a sun sign perspective, and then there's Vedic astrology, and
Right.
then
Yeah.
Egyptian astrology. It seems like
Yeah.
there's a lot out there, but they all have value and worth, and I think probably come somewhere close together at some point.
Yeah, that's a good point, Lori, because the galactic one, you'd be known as a Virgo, but does Virgo in that definition
Yeah,
actually
I don't
describe
even know.
still what like a Sag in Western does? Or is it like, how does that work?
Yeah, I don't know about the galactic astrology. I know that in Vedic, so right now, if you're a Capricorn, you're mid-December to mid-January, but in Vedic, it's 21 days different. And that's because the actual tilt of the earth is 21 degrees different now. So they follow the actual tilt of the earth. I think I would be a Sag in Vedic, but the energy is the same.
Right.
The moon is still the emotions, and the sun is still your character, and Mars is still aggressive. And I know they have some other asteroids and stuff that they put a little bit more weight to when they look at the chart. So it just depends how deep into it you want to get, because there's some astrologers they go to decadence and they go through all the asteroids and they look at every little tiny bit to add to the soup.
Too much
And
for
I say,
me.
yeah, it's a lot of study. People don't realize that if you really want to be really, really good at astrology, there's people that have studied it for 20, 30 years consistently, and they know the in and out. You can look at past lives. You look at Saturn. You look at the North Node and the South Node. Generally, the North Node in your chart is where you're going in this life, the direction you're heading in, and the South Node is where you came from. Saturn is your karmic planet. It shows you your karmic traits come into this life. It's a lesson teacher. So if you get more into it, people break down. The only thing that most people don't break down is death in astrology. There's medical astrology where you can look at the chart and kind of determine where there's vulnerabilities in the health or when health crises will occur. And you look at things like the sixth house, which is your house of health, what's going on there. If there's bad aspects there, you might have some issues. So you kind of look at the whole, I call it a pizza, right? You look at the whole pizza and you see how one planet aspects the other, how they bounce off each other, how the energy is, if it's a trine, the energy is going to flow smoothly. And that's going to make the energy between those two planets, those two houses compatible. So if your intuition is strong and you have a trine, like I have a trine between Neptune and the moon, which I think adds to my intuition, it makes it easier for me. But then when it's easier for you, you put less effort into it, right? Because it's easy. But if you have a square, then you're going to hit the corner and have to make that turn. Then you're going to struggle. And the struggle is going to make you learn that lesson better. But it's not going to be easy.
So sun sign is in what house? Is that the first?
It's different on every chart. The ascendant is always in the first house.
So what is, I'm sorry, ascendant?
The ascendant.
So Sagittarius for me is in the first house. That's right. That makes
Yeah.
sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Got
So
it.
so that's it's ascendant. That's the sign that was coming up the moment you were born, and that'll
is it-
change every 2 hours. So that's
Okay.
why the time frame is important.
Important.
If you're looking at a chart where you're doing the houses, then you need to know the time, because the time's going to tell you in which house, but what planet was in which house the time you were born, and that's going to affect the way you interpret it. You can look at it, just the chart and where the planets were at the time without the houses, and get an idea of how that person is by the sun, moon, and you won't know the rising per se because you don't have a time. And a lot of times when you don't have a time, they go off of about noon, 12 noon.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So let me say I'm a Leo as a sun sign, but I'm a Virgo rising or ascendant. I didn't think about or know about a rising till a couple of years ago when I started to, meet people like yourselves who knew about this stuff. So I'm going through my whole life being like, I'm a Leo, looking at all of those characteristics and qualities and all of those things. And then when you start breaking it down to all the different details, like that is only a very small portion. So what are the best ways for people like me, selfishly? Like, should I be really reading the horoscope or the things for a Virgo? Because that's my rising and that's like my, I don't even know how you describe it. Like, I guess let's start off with what's the difference between the sun and the ascendant rising, and which one should we really be looking at, or both?
Well, it depends what you're doing. So to your first part of your question, right? If you're looking at the horoscope and your ascendant is Virgo, then you should be looking at Virgo.
See,
The reason for that is because when an astrologer writes a horoscope for a sign, when they sit down and look at the planets or where they're at that moment when they're writing it, they put that sign on the ascendant. So when they start saying this planet, and they put Virgo on the ascendant, and then they tell you Virgo's on the ascendant, and you have Leo going through your, I can calculate, but I'm just on top of my head, fourth house, right? And you're going to feel such and such on the home front. Well, Jupiter won't be going, did I say Jupiter? Whatever, but Jupiter, right, won't be going through your fourth house unless Virgo is actually on your ascendant. If Virgo is in your natally on your birth chart in your seventh house, then you're not going to have Jupiter going through your fourth.
I mean, this is
The,
like
the
over my
planets won't line up.
It's like
Okay,
you're
so
speaking Japanese.
say you okay. Let's say you have right, and you slice the pizza into 12 slices. Okay, so each slice is a house. In the first house, you have pepperoni. In the fourth house, you have an anchovy, and in the seventh house, you have a jalapeno. Okay, your sun
Excellent
sign is
pizza.
jalapeno. Okay, so your sun natally is in the seventh house. So if you read your sun sign, Leo, horoscope, the horoscope they give you is not going to be considering your, what is it, your
Anchovies and my pepperonis.
anchovy and your pepperoni and your anchovy won't be in the first and fourth house because your sun is not in the seventh. When they do the horoscope, they take your sun and they move it all the way to where your pepperoni is. And that's going to put your pepperoni all the way to where your sun was in the seventh house, and then your anchovy is going to go from the fourth house to the 10th house. So when they say, oh, your anchovy is crossing to your fourth house, it's not. It's going to be in your 10th house. Because normally your pepperoni is in the seventh house.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Kind of.
It,
So when like even in like the funny calendar section of the newspaper, when they're putting a horoscope together there and they're putting like the dates of your birthday in like a very simplistic way, right? You're like reading the little blurb in the newspaper, right? Like old people do because no one reads a newspaper anymore, but that's me. And or my dad is sending me these little like snippets, right? And they put this next to it. I should really be looking at the Virgo one, even though it's listing the dates where my birthday is for Leo, right? Like that's the sun sign. So what is the difference between a sun and a rising and ascendant? And why is that important for us when
okay.
reading a horoscope?
So those dates that you're talking about that they give you, those are the dates that the sun is in Leo, right?
Yes.
Between July, August, the sun is in Leo. Okay.
Yeah.
When they do the horoscope, they take your Leo and they put it on the ascendant. So it shifts everything. It's going to be like the dates stay the same, the sun stays the same, but the houses that the planets are in will change.
Got it. So I should be reading my Virgo.
I read both.
Yeah, because what happens is they'll take wherever your Leo is. But let's say your sun is in the, just for giggles, right? We'll say your sun is in the fourth house, right? Home. Sun is in the fourth house, and home is going to be important to you. Okay, we'll say that. The date that the sun is in Leo stay the same, regardless of what house it's in.
Right.
And so when you're born and you take your first breath, all the planets are in a certain house according to the time of birth. The planets continuously move. So the ascendant generally changes every 2 hours. So if you were born at 10, you'll have one ascendant. And if you were born at 12, it'll be a different ascendant. because it's particular to you, the individual. So when you look at a horoscope and your sun is in the fourth house, your Leo sun is going to be in another house, and your other planets will have shifted with the translating planet. So they take it and they put it in the first house. Well, when they take it from the fourth house and put it in the first house, they're shifting all those planets too. Because the whole pie has to move together. You can't just take one slice and put it on top of the other slice and all the other planets stay the same. As soon as you rotate it, they all rotate.
So to me, what you're saying is, even though each of the horoscope signs has years or months or whatever, it doesn't take into account the time of birth. So that's why it's different, because they don't have all the facts. They're just using something very general. That's why it's different. As a human being, I can't see that.
I know, but I got it.
Okay.
Where's the sun?
Sorry, my son's in the 12th house.
I just want everyone to go on YouTube and see if you can see at all what her freaking little phone screen says. Of course, I'm wearing.
No, I was just saying I got it. I was sorry. I was just being like,
oh my God, she's such a Leo. This is what I deal with. Okay.
I'm such an attention whore. I can't help it.
It makes sense. I'm a Libra. We want to be on the stage alone, and Leos can share the stage, but they want to be the brightest one.
You're a Libra. You want to be fair, and it's not fair that she's cutting you off.
Yeah, Lizzie.
And she's a Leo. She wants to be seen.
Yeah, but I cut you off.
But my Cancer moon feels bad, and I'm gonna have guilt and feel bad about it.
Then you'll eat a pizza with her, and you'll get over it.
What is it? Where's your sun is in the 10th house? You said
12.
Mine's in the 10th. So yours
in the 10th. That's the place.
Good.
10th house is the 10th house is it's your reputation and your career and authority figures. It would also be generally considered the father figure. It would be your relationship with your father. Usually the 4th house is the mother and the 10th house is the father. And so you look at the planets that are in the 4th house, and that's how you feel about mom, and in the 10th house, that's how you feel about dad. So the sun in the 10th house would be someone, unless the parents reverse roles, 10th house son would be someone who would really care about the dad. The dad would be the shining to him.
No, my parents reverse roles.
Yeah, there could be.
So what does it say that her son is Libra in the 10th house? Like, how would that change if she were a Leo in the 10th house versus a Libra in the 10th house?
Well, Leo's ruled by the sun. 10th house is reputation. A Libra in the 10th house, being fair, being diplomatic, all that kind of stuff would be justice, court system, all that stuff would fall under that Libra reputation, career. So you could be a lawyer, you could be someone who seeks to help the underprivileged, someone who wants to do well and keep balance and be fair and just and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Sounds about right.
If you're at a Leo there, then you could be an actor. You could be dramatic about what you do. There's going to be a flair to what you do. You want to shine with what you do. But here's the thing with you, though. You said your sun is in the 12th house. The 12th house is a hidden house. So sun in the 12th house is not big on public, like on public display. They're more reserved when it comes to that. And then they would be highlighting the area that deals with the subconscious mind, with meditation. They could deal with hospitals and institutions, the things that are ruled by the 12th house. But you have the battle with the Leo part of you. Mm-hmm. The Leo wants to stand out. Mm-hmm. So, and then the Virgo part, you would want to organize it all. So the Leo got the flare held back a little bit because it's in the 12th house. If you ever went to prison, you'd probably be the leader of the drama class. So depending on where the sun is, that's where you shine. That's where your character, your heart is. And the 12th house is the hidden house. It's the house of sorrow. That's what it's called. So you would have a thing towards helping people. It's also the house ruled by Pisces. So there's emotion there.
Mm-hmm. So is it
It,
true
it,
that the sign in your 12th house is also hidden from you? I've always had trouble reading Scorpios. Scorpios are very hard for me. They're hard for me to understand. I know they're elusive in nature anyway, but Scorpio is in my 12th house. So I had someone tell me once, it's whatever's in your 12th house is hidden from you. Is that correct?
well, Scorpios in general are private people.
Yeah.
Scorpio is a private sign. They're very secretive. They can heal well. They can be freaky. They can cut your throat. Scorpio is all that kind of stuff. Scorpio's 12th house, though, I think that would incline you more towards the metaphysical
Mm,
and deep research, going into the unseen stuff, the subconscious mind, because that's all part of the 12th house stuff.
mm.
So if you can't connect with them, it could be they're not resonating with you, or they're blocking you, or they don't open up. Scorpios are pretty private. You can feel their energy. And a lot of people are drawn to the Scorpio energy because it's a very healing energy. But they're good at getting secrets. They're not always big at giving secrets. So
Is
it
that
could be
always
that.
the case for all Scorpio? Does it matter if someone's Scorpio is in their moon? Will they still be secretive versus their rising or their sun? Like, how do you determine those kind of main qualities? Do they have to be in a sun or a rising?
You look at what the energy of the house is, right? The house is the state.
Mm,
So if it's in the first house, then they're gonna come across that way. They're gonna come across as being private, or they're gonna come across as being magnetic. People will be attracted to them. People will tell them their secrets. What was the other house you said?
12, 10, 12? I don't know. We don't know anything about houses.
So it depends. If it's in the fourth house, they could have their spirituality based on. I have Scorpio in the fourth house with Jupiter, and so for me, it's like my refuge is at home, where I rejuvenate, and my privacy is at home.
Right.
I don't let people in my house that I don't know, and even the ones I know are limited. It's just in
Yeah.
my nature.
So what's in your
So,
4th house, Liz, on your chart? I'm going to look at mine. I'm curious now
okay.
what it says about us.
God, I don't know if I know how to understand this.
I have an app that tells me. Astra. Astra. It's great. Lori, in your chart, Jupiter is in Aries in the 4th house. Independent, self-expression, home environment, freedom, blah, blah. Got it.
You have it in Aries, so that would mean that your mom was probably impulsive,
Mm-hmm.
and the home environment should have been good, and maybe you had a lot of people coming in and out of it.
Not the best
Jupiter
people.
expand,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I
That makes
think,
sense.
yeah.
and Aries
Okay.
Aries is impulsive, right? It's the warrior, so there's gonna be protection from the home too, passion in the home.
And what did you find
But with
yours?
Aries, you got to have something that sustains it, because it'll shoot off and then it dies out.
Neptune is in my fourth house. Is that something?
There's both usually, right? I don't understand how
Yeah.
that works because there's like a sign.
Well, Neptune is a 12th house, rule of 12th house. It's a planet where there's illusion, where you don't see things clearly. So fourth house Neptune, you may not have seen what was going on at home clearly. You may have had illusions about the things that were going on at home.
That's for
You,
sure.
you may have had illusions about who your mom really was versus who you made her out to be in your head. That kind of thing.
Neptune and Capricorn in the fourth house.
This Capricorn adds structure to where it's at, ruled by Saturn. So you're gonna have some structure to the craziness and to the illusion, and so it doesn't go all the way up. I have Mercury and the Sun in Capricorn, so I think that helps me because I have that Neptune Pisces trine, and it keeps me from going too far out the other direction, not coming back.
I feel that.
Mm. Okay, so what this tells me is we need James to do our charts, and then we have to have a follow-up episode, James, and we can talk about all of them. I think that would be amazing.
The other thing you would want to do too is do some synastry, compare the chart, and see what past lives or what relationship connections there are
Ooh,
between
that
the
would
two
be
of you.
fun.
That'd be really fun. Yeah. Because now I'm just realizing that like whenever anyone tells me anything about their like their main three, I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. I don't know your houses, so I don't really understand you yet.
I love
There's
it.
so much rabbit hole shit that you have to get into unless you see the whole. That's why people who actually know what they're talking about, they're like, no, just give me your chart, because like you could look at this crazy shit that Lori's going to say, I can't see that. And I'm like, I can't even see it. I don't know what the fuck I'm looking at. It looks like,
well, I can't read it. I wouldn't be able to tell you what
exactly.
that.
I'm like, it's fucking
It's like a
Japanese to
math
me. It doesn't
equation.
matter.
You gotta look at it like everything has energy, right? We're all energy. So I tell people, learn the planet, learn the energy of the planet, and then you learn the stage. Each house is a stage, and then each sign is a character. So each sign has its trait. Each planet brings its energy to that trait, and it plays out on the stage of whatever the house is. And so you'll know that this is playing out that way because it's in the first house or the seventh house or the fourth house or the eighth house. And you look at it like, okay, this person has this in the eighth house, so they're going to be that way. And each house, it breaks down. First house is the self. Second house is your resources, what you put value to. And it could equate to your money, how you make your money. Your third house is your brothers and sisters, your early upbringing, and short distance travel. There's more to it, but those are the basics, right? Communication, short distance travel. Long distance travel is the ninth house.
How do you determine a short distance for a long distance? Is it like
Well, like
state lines,
overseas,
countries? Okay.
yeah, different countries and stuff would be long distance. Your fourth house is home. It's usually the mother, but it's your home environment. And some people equate it with the body, because the body is the home of the soul. The fifth house is competition, gambling, it's creativity, it's romance, sex and romance. The sixth house
What a
is work.
combination.
Yeah. Well, just the sex part is the eighth house, but the romancing part is the children is the fifth house. Sixth house is the house of health. It's the house of work. On the daily worker, it's pet, small pet. Seventh house is partnerships, relationships. I think it's also some legal stuff. The eighth house is inheritance, death, rebirth, drugs, sex, like the red light district type thing.
Addictions. Yeah.
Addictions, yeah.
Yeah. Except
Ninth
for
house
gambling, which is with romance,
Fifth
which
house.
is very interesting.
So gambling's an addiction, sex addiction,
Yeah.
gambling addiction.
Yeah. And then ninth is long distance travel. It's philosophy. It's your ideals, religion. 10th house is your reputation. It's authority figures. It's career versus your day job. It's your career. 11th house is social clubs, friends, goals. And 12th house is prisons, hospitals, institutions. It's hidden enemies. 7th house is open enemies. 12th house is hidden enemies. With your sun there, you could probably spot your hidden enemies, I would imagine, because your sun lights it up. So you're going to light up all the 12th house issues if your sun is in 12th house. There's a few presidents that have both house suns, because they're the ones that can be one way in character and come out and be another way on stage. So I mean, who they present publicly is not who they are privately.
Yeah, that's all of them. It's
Yeah,
every politician I've ever heard of.
Yeah. They all should earn Oscars.
Yeah, but that's 10th house. I mean, that's 12th house
Interesting.
character. As a 12th house sun, who you are at work is different than who you are at home. The personality that you present there is different than the personality you present at home.
We're going to have to also get into like what it's like to look at a natal chart for someone who's like just born and be like, this is who the chart is kind of saying that they would or could be, versus rereading the same chart for someone who's already lived a significant amount of life to like reinterpret. I have to understand how like the same chart can be read for different moments in your life and still be accurate. I mean, we don't have to get into it now, but like there's a lot, there's a lot more.
There is, but that's a cool thing too, because I'll do that for friends who are having children. I'll send them the chart and the interpretation, because I can have a program that will print out the interpretation. Then they know these are the tools you got to work with. These are what things you got to look out for. But it's energy, and you control that. So this is a tool for you to use to help guide your child in a direction that's going to be in the best for them, right? Where they can develop to their utmost ability. When you look at it years later, there's a couple of things that come into play. One is when you look at it years later, you can look back and say, oh, like I did with the astrology chart of being a medium. She was right. He was right about A, B, C, D, E, and F. When I was, back in those days, I was like, yeah, this shit ain't happening. And then now looking back, I'm like, she was right about these things. But the other thing you got to take into effect when you start looking into, as time goes on, there's a progress chart that shows the progression of your natal chart over the years. And so you look at that too. Because let's say you're born a Leo, and in 30 years, you start to act more like, let's see, fifth, sixth, Virgo. You start to act more like a Virgo than a Leo. And then you look at your progress chart, and your sun has moved into Virgo. And so now you're picking up the vibe of the Virgo energy overlaid over your Leo sun, and you're starting to combine the two. Now you're becoming more organized or present yourself differently, however you work the Leo energy out.
So
So
interesting.
yeah, you have to throw that into the soup.
There's so much.
No, this soup is very intricate.
Yeah, it gets
There's a lot of shit in this
complicated.
soup. And that pizza is all sorts of craziness. Oh,
It's all,
man, there's
yeah,
a lot of
you
good
start,
food.
you
There's a
start
lot of
spinning
good food
around.
in astrology.
But you can look at it. You can look at, if you're looking at your natal chart now, you can look at what you came in with, then you can say to yourself, I had this urge to do this in my life, and I didn't do it. And you look at your chart, and your chart shows all these trines to doing that. And trines are easy energy, so it was too easy for you, and you didn't do it. If you would have had an opposition or square, and you had to battle to get it, then maybe you would have done it. But if you choose to do it, you can start doing it, and then that trine will make it easier for you to pick up on it, and you can make that switch.
That's so interesting.
And if you keep having to struggle with something, you can look at your chart and say, why do I always struggle when I try to speak in front of people? And then you look at where your planet Mercury is at, and maybe it's hidden in the 12th house or something. It doesn't want to be out there on the public stage, or it's aspecting another planet that's causing you to feel the anxiety behind it.
I have a bazillion more questions. I feel like this could go on for many, many more hours. I think I have to write them down. If I don't stop myself right now, I will literally never sleep tonight.
Well,
We'll be here all night.
let's have James
Really?
do our chart and then
Yeah.
draw some connections and then walk through some of it.
I'll be more than happy to come back.
Yeah.
Right.
Every few weeks, we just
Right.
like throw a James episode in. By the way, in case you missed our friend Jim, here he is. I love this. Thank you so much for being here with us. This was really
My pleasure.
fascinating. I'm now just like, I'm just going to obsess over my chart, and reading any of this is going to make any sense. It's like fucking Shakespeare. It's like, it's jibber jabber. Okay. I'm like, oh, okay. How's this blah? Like, okay, I'm not going to remember any of this. And I'm the slowest reader on the planet. So it'll take me 6 more months to get through all of this. So don't worry.
Yeah, and well, you picked that time to come in, so.
Okay. Then we have to get into that where like, I picked it. Okay. Like, why? Why did I pick it? I'm not going to ask that question now because we have to go. But
Okay.
So-
Okay.
thank you, everyone. Jim, you're amazing. We love you. We can't wait to talk to you more. Tell everybody where they can find you, and we will wrap this up in the show notes too.
They can find me on Instagram under Psychic Medium Jim. Look me up. I'm right there.
Psychic Medium Jim. You heard it first here, everybody. Easy as that. You're incredible. I can't wait to dive into all the goods. We will see you all next time, everybody. Hop on your broomsticks. Have a wonderful day.